Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting. It is Monday, February 7th, 2022, and we'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Stroman.
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Drew.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the invocation, and that'll be by Brad Clausen, and following the invocation will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Let's pray. Tonight, Father, we come to honor you as Creator. In all things, you are the author and source of life. This universe would not exist without you, and we want to give you credit for that. And we also want to invite your presence here through the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, that your will be done here in this place. I want to pray specifically, Father, that this would be a place not just of knowledge but of wisdom, a place where information would be turned into good policy and plans that would benefit the people of Rapid City in this region, that your heart would show forth in the decisions made. I also want to pray, Father, for your grace over each one gathered here, every council member and every member of the that's gathered here, the police department and all of the others that are serving, that you would protect and give grace to their families and to them as they serve us in the community. I do pray, Father, for the many difficult situations that we find ourselves in here in this city. There are a lot of homeless. There are a lot of people who are broken. A lot of people who are struggling, and we would pray that we in the city would somehow figure out how to minister to each one and to each of us. And we would pray for the peace of Christ to be upon this place. And I thank you, Father, for all that have gathered here and all that are listening. And I would pray that your Spirit would go out to us and minister to each one of us in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance. Everyone. And now for the adoption of the agenda. Will there be a motion by council?
So moved.
Motion to adopt by Evans, second by Lehman. All in favor of adopting the agenda as is, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now to general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. We have one speaker request form, and it's from Carla Schanzenbach. And all the speakers tonight will have 3 minutes. You can look over here at these little lights and see how you're doing on time, and just ask you to respect that, please.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, thank you. I just want to call your attention to a traffic safety issue that has been on my mind a little bit. Around the Rocker Square Plaza up there by South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, when you're heading from the city east on St. Joseph Street around that area, or if you're coming west the other direction and turn on Birch or Elm and back in towards those dorms, there's often cars parked on both sides of that street, and the traffic goes fairly fast along there, and you can absolutely not see to get out into those lanes safely. I'm going to suggest a low-tech solution, which means, of course, there's no way it can ever possibly be implemented. But in other places I've been in, they've just been able to use the mirrors that they would set there that then would allow people to kind of see that traffic that's oncoming and give people a better opportunity to not have to try to pull so far out into traffic to see when it's coming. So that would be my concern and my suggestion. I hope you'll consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to non-public hearing items, 1 through 70. We're going to open public comment on items 1 through 55. We do have some speaker requests on item number 35. First up by Cale McNabo.
Sorry for that, Mr. Mayor. It's Cale McNabo, Long Branch Civil Engineering. I represent the petitioner in this matter. We have had some internal discussion and would ask this item be continued for 2 weeks at the applicant's request.
Okay. Thank you. And Jennifer Langeth, would you like to speak on the same item? Okay. Okay. And that is all of the items during this public comment, so we'll end the public comment and then open up the consent items 1 through 55. Would there be items the council would like to take from consent and consider individually? Go to Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Items 34, 35, 45, and 46. Thank you.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Item 44, please.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion then to approve the consent items 1 through 55 with the exception of 34, 35, 44, 45, and 46.
Second.
Motion by Solomon and a second by Jones to that effect. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And so we'll go to item 34. Pat, let's see, item 34. Item 34 is to uphold the denial of exception request from John Eisinger to waive the requirement to install sanitary sewer main within Nameless Cave Road right-of-way in conjunction with the proposed subdivision of Lot 2 of Block 1 of Irene Estates. We'll go to Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure I fully understood the action that we're taking on this. So the request was to allow septic and drain fields. That was denied by our zoning. And so if we uphold the denial, then we are supporting the decision made by our zoning people to not allow it. Is that correct?
That appears to be correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Vicki Fisher.
that denial actually came from the Public Works Department, but it was done so in association with a preliminary subdivision plan that did initiate in the Community Development Department. And so we were fully aware of the requirement for the extension and connection to the sewer and shared in comments at the Public Works Committee about the preservation of the Madison Aquifer. I just want to thank the councilman for crediting me with all the great background on it, but it was really the Public Works Department that did the research.
So then I can't make a motion because I'm talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go to Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Eisinger, if he would like to come up to the podium. I much have a question, sir, but I have 5 minutes. If you'd like to present anything on this, please feel free.
I have a PowerPoint. Basically, I'm asking for an exception to allow that a septic field be authorized in this, on this property. So I've been working with Public Works trying to split 6015 Nameless Cave Road. I currently own 5 acres of land there at the northwest intersection of Highway 44 and Nameless Cave that extends up the road. There are 2 homes on that property located at 6001 and 6015. The 6015 property, and both of these are separate lots, is the one that I've been working with trying to get split. So that would add one additional home to that 5-acre piece of ground over there. The city is requiring that their sanitary sewer be tied into the Rapid Canyon Sanitary Sewer District overlay there, which requires tearing up Nameless Cave Road and extending the sewer all the way down to Highway 44, which would be economically impossible to do for one single home in this area. This lot that I'm proposing is 3.35 acres, is the initial lot, and we were trying to separate that down to 2.16 acres, and the remaining 1.9 currently has a home on it, and that would remain unchanged. The zoning over there is low-density residential by city and low-density residential on 2 sides by the county, and agricultural zoning to my north property line. This is a very rural setting, probably one of the most rural settings in the city limits. I'm the last house in the city limits on the West Highway 44 area. I'm surrounded on 3 sides by county, and Nameless Cave is a 2-mile-long dead-end road that's had very little development in the last 70 years. And in fact, once Crystal Cave closed down 20 years ago, or maybe not quite 20, but at least 10 or more, there's been less activity on that road. Here's kind of an overall aerial shot of that area. You can see there's no homes here at all on that entire stretch of road, other than the 2 at the very, very end of Highway 44, which are mine. This is a shot of the area that's in question, where the septic system, where I'm asking for the septic system to be installed. And there's a picture of the lot that I'm trying to build on, or separate to be built on. Basically, I'm 25 to 35 feet from the building site outside of the sewer district overlay, and my neighbor directly to the north, and all of my neighbors to the north, are on septic systems. I'm being asked to run a sewer line, a sewer main, almost 1,300 feet down to Highway 44, which obviously is not, economically possible for one home. That's the equivalent of running a sewer system from Main Street Square all the way to the Rushmore Hotel on 8th Street. The reasons that I believe this exception should be allowed is this is a large 2-acre lot, can easily accommodate a home. There's no impact, there's no homes even anywhere around this. It would have no impact on any other homes in the area. It's an empty lot that I can't even see or even use from where my current house is. The only creatures using it are deer and turkeys. The highest and best use for this land is for a residential home, and currently we're dealing with a shortage of homes, a shortage of rentals. This would obviously just add one home to the property tax base, and it would put one rental home back in the market, which would be the house I'm living in, which currently was in the rental market, but I had to move back into it, so I'm living in that one now. And I've also agreed to surrender 17 feet of my property at no cost to the city for future expansion of Nameless Cave Road, which at this point looks like that could be 100 years out or more. I guess I've had no other opposition other than what we've talked about earlier. So I just ask that this exception be allowed so I can build, separate this lot and build a single-family residence on it. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Sir, on one of your slides, one of the bullets said there would be no environmental impact, and you kind of flew by that one and didn't mention that. The environmental impact seems to be the main reason that there's been a recommendation to deny this. So do you stand by your statement on there that if these 2 drain fields were allowed, that there would be no environmental impact?
I'm not an environmental engineer.
But it's in your presentation as one of your bullet
It
items.
is, that there's no environmental impact that I know of right now on there. And if the septic system's correctly installed, from the engineers that I've talked to, that they didn't feel there would be any issue there, and it's just one system.
But in the presentation to Public Works, it was explained to us that there would be 2 drain fields, not a septic tank, but there would be 2 drain fields. And they would alternate use, which I still don't understand if you got 2 flushers or what. So I don't know how it can be said that there would be no economic or impact.
I'm not sure
On this.
where that if that came from Ron Davis, the engineer, or where I hadn't seen that particular thing that you're talking about.
Well, it came from the gentleman who represented you
Okay, all
that
right.
spoke to Public Works.
Okay, I didn't
He was
realize that.
very adamant about saying there would be 2 separate drain fields, and they would be used alternating, and that would make sure there was no environmental
Well,
impact.
then he must have gone extra to make sure that there was no environmental impact up there. I was told that there was not, if the septic system was correctly installed, there would be no environmental impact to that area.
Okay, but let's make sure and call it what it is. It's not a septic system, and that's what he told us, and Public Works unanimously declined it because of the potential impact on the watershed area there. So to say that there's no environmental impact right now is correct, because there's nothing there to cause any. I can't agree with your bulleted item saying that there would be no environmental impact because of what is going to take place out there. The likelihood is high, and that was why the recommendation to Public Works was to deny the application. Everything that you showed makes it look, like a wonderful project. But to gloss over the environmental impact aspect of it seems not the best way to handle the situation. And based on what your representative told us at Public Works, that's what it was going to be.
Okay. I know of no other people with septic systems up the road or anybody that's had those issues. So,
And there's been a lot of projects approved in Rapid City in the past that shouldn't have been, and that we're trying to clean up those kind of messes, get things back within proper zoning and rules and regs. So I can't support the argument, well, simply because it was done that way before makes it right now. That argument didn't work with my daughter when she missed curfew, and it's not going to work for me sitting up here trying to approve things as a basis to make a decision that could impact the quality of water for the citizens of Rapid City. So that's where I'm concerned with your request, sir.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like the person that made the caveat that it was environmental impact to please speak on what the environmental impact of a septic tank in the hills is, or in this particular area.
This is a drain.
So,
Are you,
I'm asking if it was Ben, then if he could explain what the environmental impact is, and then I'll explain my position.
let's go to City Engineer Ben Ganji.
Yeah, so this area here has been identified as a source water protection area, meaning that it's just a very fractured rock with no soil on top to help filter out any of the septic systems that are being installed there. First off, Mr. Eisinger, I can completely sympathize with where you're at with this. We realize what we're asking of you here, and that it is somewhat a lot, but it is in conjunction with protecting our water source, which is paramount to everybody here.
Mr.
Affects
Mayor.
all of Rapid City.
He's on my timeline. I just want to know, we're talking
I'm
about
sorry.
the fractures in the Madison, or above, the earth above the Madison, that's what's leaking in there. Is Canyon Springs on this same?
I'm not familiar with Canyon Springs, I'm sorry.
I don't know, there's probably, 30, 40, 50 houses up there, half-acre lots on septic tanks?
Sure, I can speak to that too.
Okay.
So these source water protection areas have been identified, and we haven't made any requirements to force anybody onto these or into any kind of, treating their sewer or install any kind of infrastructure. The idea here is that we implement these things in future subdivisions and in developments.
The reason for my question is that we had this conversation about Canyon Springs several years ago. There's septic tanks that are available that are aerobic, that basically, after a little bit of infrared treatment, you can almost drink them. I think you can drink them. I didn't know if that was an option in this case, but if it's been discussed or...
It hasn't been proposed. They're just, what they have asked for is to install septic, drain fields type system.
Okay. So this would be the only, Mr. Mayor, this is the only reason we're denying this one is because of the septic tank problem? Can someone,
So the whole purpose of this is
Drainfield, I
that
guess.
this is, I'm sorry, is that this is immediately upstream from our Jackson Springs water treatment facility. I mean, hundreds of yards away. It's just right upstream from it. So this is the importance of what we talk about with these source water protection areas within the city. This one being very close to our Jackson Springs. And we have other wells in place where we've identified these source water protections areas and just trying to maintain that water quality within Rapid City.
no, I get that, I just didn't know if there was another option. I mean,
There-
I'm
there-
familiar with that area pretty well, I understand, you know, the Canyon Springs has several units up there that are on aerobic systems that, I mean, I just didn't know if any other option had been presented. I looked at driving that sewer line all the way down that road, that's not even an option. I can't believe anybody would even bring that up as an option to tear up a perfectly good gravel road to put, you know, thousands of feet of sewer into, but I know that there's aerobic septics out there that are available that don't even require very limited drain fields, so I don't know if Mr. Hazinger had looked at that and proposed that to you or not. So I'm assuming not, so thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a little misconception here that this isn't a septic. It is a septic. There's a lot of septics out there that have 2 drain fields. The reason they do that is so the life of the drain field lasts longer. So every 3 months, they typically shift from one drain field to the other drain field, and it'll give you 20, 30 more years out of your septic system. But my guess is the majority of the septic systems that I've seen that have 2 drain fields are mound systems because of the fact that they don't have the percolation for the septic system. And that was kind of a question that I was going to ask you because that area looks like there's quite a bit of soil. Have you checked and done a perk test just to see if it actually would in that area?
No, I have not, but you're right, there is a lot of soil in that area.
So, and then I have another question for Ben, if you don't mind. Do you know what the actual water table is in that area? Because we're talking about the aquifer, I would imagine it's,
I don't know the actual elevation compared to the elevation of the surface and but I do know that there are springs in the immediate area that just come out, you know, I mean, natural springs in that area. So it's very close to the surface.
okay. And I was just curious about that. And John, I would advise you to go out because Ron makes a very good point. There's some very good septic systems out there right now, and I know that some of these systems, the state DNR will allow you to dump right into waterways. So, I mean, it cleans, you know, and they're, from what I've heard, very little of them because they're pretty new in this area. They're really not that expensive. So, and if you give me a call, I can give you a name of a couple of people you can call and talk to about it. But, you know, one of the things I might recommend is giving you some time to look into that and taking this and moving this off for, say, 30 days so you could talk to staff and talk to a few people, because there may be other options out there.
Thank you. And when I did talk to them initially, that never even came up. It was just either it was all or nothing type of thing, and that's why I'm here. So
Yeah, you know, and there's a lot of people that, it's a pretty, I won't say it's a new concept. I've known about it maybe for a decade, but it's really, really got a lot better over the last 3 to 4 years. So, anyway, thank you.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I address Vicki Fisher, please?
Yes, please.
Vicki, I believe at the Public Works Committee meeting, when we were discussing this matter, there was mention of the Source Protection District, and that's referring to, as Ben said, the wells or the springs that are in that area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it also affect the aquifer there, or do we know that?
Because of the level of that groundwater, we do believe, the engineers do believe that it does have a high potential for negative impact. And what I did remind the committee is that for many, many years, there was a standing policy. I don't know if it was in writing or just the council at the time, but platting less than 10-acre parcels was not allowed over the Madison Aquifer because of the potential impact to the Madison Aquifer, which feeds directly into our drinking water source. That has somehow, and so for many years, we just didn't receive those plats. We're starting to see them again, and we're starting to see engineers again reminding the council that we need to preserve the integrity of our Madison Aquifer.
Well, thank you, that's helpful. I have one other quick follow-up. And it also says in the summary from staff that the city master plan anticipates sewer and the eventual elimination of on-site systems in the area. Can you address that? Explain that in a little more detail?
I will defer to Ben. The city has Tier 1 and Tier 2, and I would anticipate this is in the Tier 2 project plan, but I'll defer to Ben.
Okay, you respond, Your Honor? Or
Ben
Vice
Ganji.
Mayor?
Sure, I can speak somewhat to that, and if we need more detail, we'll have one of our engineers from engineering if you need more clarification on this. But we have a master plan that has identified that area as moving into our, for the city extending sewer into that area, or for that area to be served by the city sewer. But I don't know any of the details beyond the master plan stating that. So, if I don't know, Todd, if you have any. Yep.
Thanks, Todd Pekash, Development Group. Yeah, our master plan, as it is right now, when we're sizing our downstream sewer, we are accounting for the eventual sanitary sewer going up Nameless Cave Road, as identified in the Stanley report, the source water protection report. So we are looking at all that area, the Rapid Canyon Sanitary District as a whole, and these additional areas for sewer for our existing design and construction of sewer downstream.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have. I yield.
Okay. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'll make a motion to continue this item to the first Public Works meeting in March. If I can get a second.
Second by John Roberts.
It looks like that might be March 16th from the way the calendar looks, but I'll just leave it at that. Some comments on this. I was pretty poised initially when I read it to give the exception because it just looked like the length of what it was. Then after the Public Works meeting, which great job to the committee, this came up in understanding the impact on our water. And in that case, that's what gets me nervous. So the reason I'm good with allowing time to see about some of these alternatives, which I won't pretend to be an expert on, but I do think that we want to have common sense development, obviously, but it certainly has to be managed within what's best for our water supply. So whatever options are I guess, conversed about, I want to make sure that we do protect the water. Obviously, nobody's going to want to put that at any higher risk than maybe it already is. So as we do that, I guess staff, if you could kind of get, maybe Ben, just relaying kind of you, which is a y'all in Public Works, just looking at what those options might be and if they are reasonable or not. Obviously, your first job, protect our water supply. Obviously, that's a big one. I don't think he would disagree with that either. But if there's a solution that can do both, that could be a common sense solution for you while not bringing in any additional risk to our water supply, I think that's worth pursuing. So I appreciate y'all working together. We'll see. I don't know if there's any promises that won't be back with the same sort of all or nothing deal, but at least we give some opportunity to pursue that. So I yield.
So for clarification, the motion is to postpone this item until the first Public Works meeting in March. Okay. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. And if it's possible, I have some information on the national level as well, so I'd like to get that opportunity to do some research on that, to see if there's some potential for resources that we could come up with for the city. No guarantees again, but there is some potential. So I'd like to get that opportunity to explore that, and I think the 30 days would be a sufficient amount of time to do that research. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I know I don't have much time left, but Mr. Eisinger, this is exactly how this process is supposed to work. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Sometimes there's several options that are good, and by invoking the common sense and wisdom of the people up here, our awesome staff, we're able to find those. I think it would be fantastic if you could build your home out there. Beautiful area. I hope it happens for you. But obviously what was presented to us at Public Works, none of us could support. And some great ideas have been mentioned here, and I hope that you look into them. You'll have the support of great folks here. So I will be at the Public Works meeting in March because I'm on that committee, and I'll be looking forward to what comes forward to us at that time to see what direction we can take this project. So thank you for your presentation tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We want to work with you, not against you, but also meet our needs to take care of the water and other things. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, the motion is to postpone to the first Public Works in March. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 35 is uphold denial exception request for KL McNabo to waive the requirement to construct Golden Eagle Drive right-of-way in conjunction with the proposed subdivision. Pat Jones. Oops.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to postpone this the way the gentleman requested earlier and until another proposal is brought forward.
For what period of time?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yes, and we would just like to ask that you direct staff to meet with us and possibly even this week if that would work, so that we can sit down and discuss what has transpired.
So that will be my motion. Okay, so the motion is to move this item to the February 21st. That's President's Day. Do we take that off?
Or should it come back to Public Works, because that's where it came from? Or do you want to come to the council meeting?
You don't want it to go back to the council meeting. You want it to go to Public Works again first, correct?
Well, that's what I recommend. And then it could come back to council once it's been reviewed at Public Works.
Okay, so would that be then modifying the motion to say postponed until February 15th, Public Works? That's a week and a day.
Is that enough time? What's the Public Works after that? The 29th of February that doesn't exist this year?
It's the first.
Okay, then let's just have it come to the next council meeting 2 weeks from now. Let's not drag this thing in the mud any more than it is.
Okay.
Next council meeting.
All right, postponed till the February 22nd council meeting.
And that's
Second
Tuesday.
by Richie Nordstrom.
And
Okay.
so, since I still have the floor, I was out there, Jennifer and her husband, I believe, showed me the land in question. You know, the presentation of Public Works was good, but I like to eyeball things, and so it was very eye-opening to be out there and see what's out there. And again, I think this is going to be one of those things that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think there are some good solutions floating around out here that we can get to that will work to meet the city's needs and also yours as you move forward with this. So I don't think anyone here wants to just rush through it. I think we want to do the due diligence that this deserves and make sure we come up with the right decision. So that's why my motion is what it is. Thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate it. I had conversation with Jennifer Langeth, and a couple of things we talked about, we came here tonight and found out those might not possibly work. So I think this gives a solution for the planning and Public Works to actually hash it out, find out what would work. We want something to work. We just don't want to close off that access for the future owners. So full disclosure, thank you.
Okay, motion to postpone on item 35. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 45, approve resolution number...
44?
Okay, boy. Attention.
Hey, she's still here.
This is Darla Drews. She needs to jump on it.
I didn't doze off this time.
Pardon me, but item 44. Acknowledge the November 2021 sales tax report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions for Pauline, please.
Okay?
Hello, Director of Finance, Pauline Sumption. I see that we will see a 19% increase for the year. Is that your wise estimate?
We have received our first payment for December, and it may actually be a little higher than that when the second payment comes in. But this is just for the first 11 months.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so when you look at that, can you give me an idea in dollars what that would mean? You know, how much more over last year?
So if it's 20%, it'll be around $6 million
Okay, over last year.
over last year.
Okay. That's very interesting to me. Do you have, I know I have my guesses on how we got here, but maybe you could fill us in on what you think has brought us this extra money this year.
Well, we haven't had the restrictions that we had last year for the COVID pandemic. That would be one of them, as far as being able to go to restaurants and go to social events and that type of thing. Our tourists have been wonderful. They've been coming a lot. A lot of them have come to Rapid City this year. And I truly believe that additionally, the additional money from the IRS that everyone received, doing taxes right now, $1,400 for a single person, and if there's more, it's more than that, has also helped because those folks are out spending their money, or a lot of them are. And so that's, you know, construction is up still, you know, going crazy. There's housing all over the place, not only housing, but buildings for businesses. And so I think it's just kind of a culmination of a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I would like to also thank the council members here and the mayor who worked so hard through the last year to make sure that this city was as welcoming and lucrative as it has been. We're working hard to make sure those homes happen. We're working hard to make sure that, you know, our restaurants are welcoming and our downtown is welcoming, with all the work we've done in the homeless sector and some of those other things to try and make our downtown a little bit safer. So I think that all of you guys can do a victory lap, because this just doesn't happen. It's nice that it did. COVID probably played a big part in it. People coming here plays a big part in it. But unless we make it a place they want to come to and help them build, like this meeting wouldn't have happened 6 years ago. The meeting that says, hey, we're here to help you, let's find another solution. When I got on this council, I didn't hear that kind of discussion with people with problems from the council. You know, and I really like this direction that we're going in, where we're saying, okay, can't do that, but maybe we have another way. And so all of these things are working together to make us a stronger, more vibrant, and more lucrative community to come to, live in, play in, whatever you want to do. And I've just got to say thank you to the mayor and council for making that happen. And of course, the staff has worked very, very hard along with us. So it's looking good, Rapid City. So let's just keep up the good work and make this the best place to come, live, and play. So thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And obviously, revenue was good this past year, and it looks like we're going to close out 21 strong. You know, I do want to make sure that we keep in the back of our minds, as great as the year was, that revenues were great, but expenses go up too due to inflation, salary increases, obviously shortages in equipment and supplies, and just all of that. And so while it's great to focus on the revenue side, which we all like to do, doing it without raising taxes even, which is great, you also have to balance and look at what's going to happen on the expense side. And I think as we prepare the budget for next year, we're going to see that. And so just kind of keep that in the back of your minds that we don't necessarily have all that extra money to spend because the expenses also went up. And how much of that will be taken up, we will see. We'll see how the budget process goes. But just want to kind of just put that out there. I hear a lot of talk about our revenue, but want to make sure that we understand what that means on the expense side. Thank you.
Wah, wah.
We don't have a... Okay, Lance Lehman makes a motion to acknowledge the report. Second. Second by Greg Stroman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 45. Approve Resolution 2022-014, a resolution of intent to enter into a lease with Black Hills Junior Little League for property located at 1730 32nd Street and 730 Anamosa Street. And was this Pat Jones?
Yes.
Okay, Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I'd like to move approval on 45 and 46, if I may, and keep the floor if I can get a second.
Move to approve, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Items 45 and 46.
And Solomon was a second on those. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to applaud Parks and Recreation Director Biegler and his folks. There was a time in Rapid City where there weren't official leases done for the use of this property. They were done on a handshake or, yeah, you guys can use it, that kind of thing, and it caused issues. One of the things Director Biegler has done is make sure that we have these leases in place so that the people use them, know what their responsibilities are, what the city's responsibilities are, and it's done in a business-like manner. And I applaud that. That keeps us out of trouble. That makes sure everybody knows what they need to be doing, what the expectations are, and that's the best way to do business, and I thank you for doing that. They're simple documents and agreements, but everybody knows what to expect. So I appreciate that, and that's a good way to do business. Thank you.
Again, for the record, item 46 is to approve resolution number 2022-016, a resolution of intent to enter into a lease with Rapid City Church Softball for property located at 3101 Canyon Lake Drive. So we have a motion and a second to approve items 45 and 46. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us through consent. Now to non-consent items 56 through 70. We'll open public comment on those items. We have a few speaker requests on item 64. First with Chris Stanley. And just a reminder to the speakers, you have 3 minutes. You can look at these lights up here to see how you're doing.
Thank you, everyone. I speak on behalf of myself and my wife, Lisa, who's in the audience as well. The protected forested areas in our community, like the Skyline Wilderness area, are a major draw to this city, bringing people like myself and my wife to this city. And in my opinion, to rezone this lot and increase the development of the forest in our, increased development in the forest or city will be one of many steps backwards. And I say one of many because this would create a precedent, not just in the Skyline area, but in Dinosaur Park and M Hill, where park forest lots, 60-plus lots, will then subsequently be rezoned, and the green space in our city would be lost, in a domino-like effect. In my opinion, this will dramatically decrease the appeal to draw people into our city. This lot juts, the lot in question juts into the Skyline Wilderness area like a peninsula, being surrounded 85% by park forest properties, and only touches low-density residential properties by 15% on one edge. So this change is not consistent with its surroundings. When we bought our home, we knew the zoning restriction on the neighbors' lots, and this resultant seclusion in a big reason was why our home was so costly. Now for the city to rezone that lot in our backyard to allow many new developments would be unjust to us and lower the value of our property and the value of the neighbors' properties. Has the city's legal counsel considered the legal ramifications in regards to the city's financial liability to us for lost and diminished enjoyment of our property? This rezoning to low-density residential would allow a lot every half acre on this 3.08 acre lot. While they claim they only want to do 2 houses, and that is not what's being requested here, would they not just need to build a public road up the mountain to have more than 2 lots? Does this sort of rezoning of the park forest not completely defy the city's written comprehensive development plan that repeatedly emphasizes how we need to protect the green spaces in our city? Specifically, quotations, protect the natural and scenic character of areas like the Skyline Wilderness Area, end quotation. You just need to look at the comprehensive plan map, which is included in the materials, that changes the existing zoning to comprehensive plan zoning of forest conservation. Now, isn't that the perfect name, forest conservation? And that's not what this request is asking. We're not conserving the forest. And I'd be happy to pass these maps around that show what it's supposed to be rezoned to with our plan. We do not begrudge the Hayes for building the dream home on this lot, but rather ask that the building stop at one house, as their zoning requires. They're not entitled to the rezoning, but rather they've gotten exactly what they bought, one lot for one house. Ultimately, I ask you, the leaders of the city, is this the direction we want to go with the city? Chipping away at the wild core in this city, which to this point the leaders have been able to preserve, and that draws people like us to move here. All this brings to my mind the rock band Counting Crow song, "Don't it always seem to go that we don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot." I hope that's not the direction this city is moving. Please do not diverge from the comprehensive plan. Conserve the forest on this lot. Thank you all again for all you've done to make this a beautiful place, and please vote no. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and no matter what happens, kudos for the quote. Okay, next, Carol, and I think this is correct, Rizdal?
Yes.
Okay.
My husband, Larry, and I live next to the lot at 1530 Forest Hills Drive. We have 3.8 acres. It's zoned park forest. We've lived there over 25 years. We're quite familiar with the drainage patterns of stormwater from Skyline. There's torrential rivers coming down from Skyline. The lot is very steep. From the cul-de-sac to the end of the lot, there's a rise of elevation of 100 feet. From the end of the lot to Skyline, there's another rise of elevation of 100 feet. From West Boulevard to the cul-de-sac, there's a rise of 50 feet. So as the crow flies a little over half a mile, there's a drop in elevation from Skyline to West Boulevard of 250 feet. The lot has many ravines. We're concerned, a big concern, of course we've lost our view of the forest, that's sad, but our biggest concern is erosion control. I don't know if, I want to add also, if you don't know where the lot is, you can see it from the petrified trailhead. It is surrounded by Skyline Wilderness on two sides and of course by our park forest, but it can be seen from Skyline. There's been a lot of soil that's been disturbed. There's a long road that goes up to the lot. The lot itself is, I measured it, 140 feet by 250 feet, which is almost 35,000 square feet that has been bulldozed out of the end of the lot. There's soil spilling over into the ravine on our property. So luckily it hasn't rained much, so if it had rained, I think there would be a muddy mess. I did ask the excavator about controlling erosion, and he said it would be done at the end, when everything was done. Just out of curiosity, I visited some other steep construction areas like Scotland, I think it's called Scotland Hills, and I noticed wattles and straw on the flat part and webbing. And so then I thought I would read the Stormwater Quality Control Manual. And it did say that after construction begins, soil surface stabilization shall be applied within 40 days to all disturbed areas that may not be at final grade but will remain dormant for periods longer than an additional 21 calendar days. Well, I believe the excavation stopped almost 2 months ago. So again, we're lucky we haven't had rain. There is an erosion control permit that Evan put in. It was signed, I believe, on October 20th, 21. It says he'll do wattles. I was going to say, well, I haven't seen any wattles, but today at 2:20 p.m., I saw 2 wattles being put in. Also, when I left, I saw 4 young mule deer looking at them. They're straw wattles. So, we are asking the city to delay rezoning till it's determined the present lot building is up to par. Or if you do okay the rezone, we request your due diligence in monitoring the building and excavation on this very steep clay lot before another 140 by 250 lot with a driveway is carved out of a very steep soil made of clay. I believe this is a do-it-yourself project. Last I checked, there's no builder involved. So I think Evan could use your guidance and perhaps approve rezoning with stipulations. Thank you.
Okay. Larry, do you have anything to add to that? She took up about half of your time, just so you know.
Just a few comments. If you stand in the cul-de-sac and face toward the lot and you look to the right, you'll see the new driveway going up the hill, and there is a load of gravel there. And also wattles have been installed, and I think this will help quite a bit. If you look to the left, there's a steep dirt slope with no restrictions of runoff whatsoever. There is a curb cut there, a partial curb cut. I don't know if they were considering putting a driveway up that slope or not, but it is bare dirt and there's nothing to hold that soil. And the curb cut, I think, was done to help put in utilities, and it's about 4 or 5 feet wide, a section of curb that's missing. I see water, I think I'm going to see water go right down that bank and right across into the cul-de-sac. The Forest Hills Drive is a brand new street. The city spent a lot of money on that street, mainly because the base, once they took out all the blacktop, the base was bad and they had to put much more base course gravel in it and do a lot of packing. And then they replaced some curbing, several sections of curbing here and there. City spent a lot of money on our street, and it had a lot of buckles in it and a lot of alligator areas. It was pretty bad, and I think that was due to all the water that had come down that hill over the years and had gotten underneath the blacktop. So I think there's going to be some mud and some debris, and if we really have a wet year, if this drought ends and we have a wet year coming, we might see some problems with the brand new street. I know Pat Jones was up there and looked at the area. Bill Evans was up there and looked at the area, and also Richie Nordstrom was up there and looked at the area, and they may have comments, further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Evan Hayes.
Hi, guys. I first want to start by saying thank you to the people from the community development, Vicki and her crew.
I'm sorry, can you get a little closer and speak?
I can. I
I'm having some
apologize.
trouble.
I'm a bit of a mumbler, especially this time of night. I just want to say thank you first off to Vicki and her crew for all the support that you guys have been giving me in developing this process and coming up with this idea. This is my first time doing anything like this. I also want to say to the council members, man, you guys do so much more work than I had any clue that you did. So thank you for just putting in this time for our city. It's more than I had any idea of what you guys put into it. I just want to make 3 points, 2 of which are repetitions. I had emailed you guys about this. The first is the reason my wife and I are doing this, are asking for the rezone, is because of the precedent that was already set. One of the lots in our covenant was allowed to rezone to a low-density residential and then subdivide. One of the 3. And so if we hadn't seen that already done, I don't believe we would have ever brought this idea to the table. The second one, I'm not a developer. I'm a local business owner and I'm a pastor. My wife and I, we desire space. And so all we're looking to do is subdivide into 2 lots. Keep our 2 acres and then create a second 1 acre lot. And the major reason we want to do that is so that way another family can enjoy this incredible place in Rapid City, yet surrounded by such beautiful forest. And even if you don't believe me in that, the beauty is with the ordinances amongst the low-density residential, you have to have at least 25 feet curb on the right-of-way for each of these lots. We have a total of 67 feet on our entire lot for the right-of-way. And so that means we would have to expand or extend Forest Hills Drive in order to create more than 2 lots. So we are unable to do that, nor do we have any desire to do that. And the third one, in terms of erosion, I really appreciated hearing about that from the different committees and the individuals that we've been a part of. And so it's put that at the forefront of my mind as the landowner. I own 8 acres out in Keystone. I know how to do that, but this is a steeper section of land. And so what I've done is I brought in a man named Dave Holland. He's a civil engineer with an extensive amount of work with erosion control. He's also the president of the West Boulevard Association. And we walked the lot on Sunday. And he said that this is very manageable to control. And he gave me some really good ideas on how to do that as we continue to develop our lot.
Okay, thank you. That'll bring it into the public comment period on these items. So we'll start back on the agenda under ordinances with item 56. Approve the second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6528, an ordinance repealing chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to wards and precincts and adopting a new revised chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion to approve Lehman and a second by Roberts. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 57, approve the first reading of ordinance 6516, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Dream Design International for David Lamb and Andrea Anderson Revocable Trust for rezoning request from no-use district to light industrial district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. Okay, and that annexation was item 52, I believe. So we have a motion to approve by Solomon, and a second by Drew, was it? Okay, we'll go to Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like an explanation of what no-use area means. I mean, obviously, no use is no use, but that's not always the case. So can someone fill us in on no use?
Go to Vicki Fisher, please.
Finally, a question actually for my department. So whenever, by ordinance, whenever we annex property in, we apply a no-use zoning designation to it. So assuming that you were going to approve the annexation, which was item 52, you in essence created the no-use district. We advised the applicant as such, and therefore the application before you is from no-use district to the many additional zoning applications you will see on the upcoming items.
If I may, Mayor. So just so I'm clear, any new land that comes into the city is no use simply because it hasn't been designated for what it's going to be used for. So that's where it starts, is there's no use, and then once someone wants to do something with it, the request comes forward like this, because this is quite a project, to do something with. Is that correct?
Almost correct. So the no-use district serves as a holding zone. They can't get a building permit or do anything with it. On the other hand, they can only hold it in that no-use district for 120 days. And then if they don't rezone it, we will rezone it for them in compliance with the city's adopted comprehensive plan.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I see Kyle's in the audience there, and if any of my colleagues haven't had a chance to look at what's going on out here, I would recommend you to take the time, give them a call, and they will put you through and show you what exactly is happening out there. It's state of the art. It's exciting. I learned a lot from the couple hours I spent there the other day, and I learned a lot about the talent that's in our community that we don't know about, things like that. I think this is going to be a game changer. So, thank you.
Okay, motion for item 57 is for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 58, approve first reading ordinance 6517, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Dream Design International for David Lamb and Andrea Anderson, revocable trust, for a rezoning request from no-use district to heavy industrial district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. Pat Jones makes the motion to approve, a second by Lance Lehman. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 59, first reading ordinance 6518, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Dream Design International for David Lamb and Andrea Anderson, revocable trust, for a rezoning request from no-use district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. Motion to approve by Pat Jones, second by Bill Evans. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 60, first reading, ordinance 6519, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Dream Design International for David Lamb and Andrea Anderson, revocable trust, for a rezoning request from no-use district to heavy industrial district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Highway 79 and Old Folsom Road. Approved by Drew and a second by Pat Jones. And we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. This is part of the TIF that we'll be seeing come forward here later on. But all of these recent rezones that we've been doing is part of the TIF district, and so we're looking forward to having this opportunity for our major industry coming to Rapid City, and it looks very promising. So stay tuned. We've got more. This is one of the first steps to go, and more steps to get to the completion of this project coming into our city. Looks very promising. Thank you.
Motion is for approval on item 60. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 61, first reading ordinance 6529, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Request by Frank Boyle for a rezoning request from General Commercial District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located at 3637 Edwards Street. And the recommendation is to approve in conjunction with a planned development designation. Okay, motion to that effect by Lehman, second by Evans. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 62, first reading ordinance 6530, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Marvin and K. Panch for a rezoning request from no use to heavy industrial district for property generally described as being located east of Highway 79, south of Old Folsom Road. Motion to approve by Pat Jones, second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 63, first reading, ordinance 6531, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for E.M. Hoff Family Ranch Limited Partnership for a rezoning request from no-use district to heavy industrial district for property generally described as being located west of Old Folsom Road, east of Highway 79. Motion to approve by Drew, second by Evans. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 64. First reading, ordinance 6532, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, A request by Evan Hayes for a rezoning request from Park Forest District to Low-Density Residential District for property generally described as being located at 1539 Forest Hills Drive. Go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's a tough one. I've had an opportunity to visit your neighborhood yesterday, so if you saw me driving around, I was creeping around looking at things, but beautiful neighborhood. I can understand. I can understand why you want to preserve it, and I can understand why you want to build on it. So, great neighborhood, and I hope by the end of all of this, you all can be great neighbors with each other. Full disclosure, I did correspond with both the applicant and at least a couple of the folks who had concerns about this, and I thought I wanted to make sure that I disclosed that. My primary concerns, I mean, obviously, Mr. Hayes and his family have the right to build on that property right now. So whether we like it or not, those trees being removed, that is what it is. So what we're really looking at with this rezoning is the ability to add another house and how you get there, and it's very clear that you can only get another access point out of there. You already talked about the 67 feet of access that you would have to put the two driveways. The two concerns I would have are one, erosion control, and two, stormwater drainage. I mean, where does the water go? I mean, this is a very steep, not just for the Hayes family and with the other property that he's building, but obviously how it impacts the neighbors. So, Mr. Mayor, may I direct a question to our Public Works Department with regards to this?
Yes, please.
And Ben, I know that, Ben, hey, Vicki, feel free to chime in. Anybody chime in who has an answer. But these are the real two big question marks that if these are managed, I can go ahead and approve it. So for one, we talked about erosion control, and I've heard some feedback that maybe we've looked more into that, and I know that I did send an email to, and I got a response from Todd from City Engineering, who I thought was good. But also talk to me about what would happen with stormwater drainage as this property develops, and that might be a Vicki question, but erosion control and stormwater drainage as the property develops, even beyond the zoning, I know, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Vicki Fisher.
So I know this because of the great testimony that Todd Pekosh gave at Planning Commission. Erosion, the stormwater drainage item, the Forest Hills Drive is designed to be the stormwater drainage channel. The city recently completed some improvements just downstream of that to be ordered to capture that stormwater that's going to come off of this development, whether or not it's one lot being developed with the residents or two. What they can't do, though, is as they are going through the construction site, is have silt or any other dirt come off the site. So I think Carol's made some great observations. She's definitely made staff aware of the issues. We had someone from Public Works out to the site today. They do have a erosion and sediment control permit, and as a part of that, they are making improvements, and we will continue to watch the site to ensure that they're monitoring it as that job site does change as well. Wattles have been included. There's rock at the entrance to the property they cannot track onto the adjacent right-of-way. Probably as importantly, the staff member that was out there today who reviews all sediment control and erosion control plans said that they are leaving the grass intact as much as possible, and that natural form will capture runoff better than anything that we can have man-made.
With my limited time. And I think another big part of that is obviously the neighboring properties on both sides of him probably would be of concern, that make sure that water's not being redirected, especially with the long driveways coming in, that water is put back on his property, obviously away from his homes. I know you'll do that, but I think there's reassurances that would need to happen with that to make sure. And did you have anything to add on erosion control measures? Anything additional, Ben, that you know about?
Yeah, well, this process that we have as a city program, throughout the city, that we monitor and implement this stormwater, pollution plan. So it's the same process that we would, apply to all of the development that's going on in Rapid City. So this person would be held to the same standards.
And the other thing that would have held me up on this is if the rest of the neighborhood were zoned differently, if they were somehow zoned in the forest conservation versus a low-density residential. And most of them are low-density residential, except it looks like one other property, it'll be Carroll's, which is a great property. So it's mixed already. So that part of it, I would have had a hesitation if it was the only one that was doing this, but since it's not, it does seem to fit with the character of the neighborhood. So I think if it's done in a responsible, thoughtful way with careful work from the city and great inspections, and then I think I can go ahead and go along with this. Thank you.
Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hayes, I appreciate you being here tonight and giving us your explanation. That's very important. We've heard from a lot of people on this project. And you, sir, have every right to build a house on that property. You own it. You have every right to do so. And stunningly beautiful area. I was up there last Saturday. You know, it's a great area, and you will most likely enjoy your home there. These concerns about erosion, stormwater control, et cetera, are very, very real. That area up there, the natural drainage, you can stand at the bottom of the hill and see the contour and see where that water's has been coming down for years. And so that is a very, very high level concern of mine. And just because you can maybe develop something or build something there doesn't mean that you should. I don't think it's a good idea at all to approve this request. I just think it's going to have a detrimental impact on the area. It's interesting to hear it said that there can be dirt but no silt. I don't know how well silt behaves, but I don't think it's going to listen, and I think we're still going to have runoff onto that area that is inappropriate. So for those reasons, I cannot support approving this change to, or the change in zoning to have it be allow for the 2 lots. I will not be supporting it if someone makes a motion to do so. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
I agree with Mr. Jones. This is a tough one. Also, Mr. Solomon. It's a very tough one. And I went up there and I see why people want to preserve their beautiful area. It's a lovely neighborhood. But I'm kind of mad at everybody that we came to this point. I'm mad at the neighborhood for maybe not getting ahead of this and preventing it years ago. Maybe we could have acquired land and everything and made the park bigger. I'm also kind of mad at the developer, the owner, for not maybe alerting us. We might have come up with a better solution where land could have been acquired. You could have built on the front half of the lot. We could have acquired the back half of that lot and the adjacent one, maybe expanded that part and park, and everybody would have been happy. I'm mad at the council that we've got a situation here and the ordinances of the city that we allow these things to happen. And those of us who've lived here our whole lives remember when there wasn't any house you could see from Skyline Drive, and now we practically drive through somebody's kitchen in several curves up there. I mean, I don't like what's happened over the last 10 years, so I'm very torn about allowing anything else to happen like that. And it's unfortunate we don't have some sort of land conservancy trust owned by the city, a nonprofit where we can acquire these things and preserve them for the future. And maybe we can go about changing and making that happen so our parklands can be managed for the future rather than allowing developers to give us the leftovers that they don't want to build on. So I'll be honest with you, I don't see any reason legally to deny him the chance, but I do think it's important that we look at the ordinances we have so we can prevent these kind of things from happening in the future, so we don't lose the character of our city. I mean, I think about going down to Phoenix, and nobody's building on, what is it, was Saddleback Mountain down there, the famous one? I mean, other towns seem to appreciate what makes them unique and gives them character, and we have allowed Skyline Drive to sort of be corrupted in that way. So I'm unhappy with this. I personally don't find the layout of the driveway and everything that's been put in so far to be very creative nor very beautiful, and I'm concerned about the fact that no matter what you manage to do, it's never going to be really that attractive. So those are my caveats on all this, and I think it's unfortunate we've come to this. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully a council member from this area will make the motion to either support or deny this. So I'm looking for that, the recommendation from those folks. And then if I can address a question to probably Vicki Fisher, please.
Yes.
Director Fisher, we've had some correspondence, and I also have to disclose that I've had correspondence with the developer, Mr. Hayes, and also Carol and Larry, that I've had several conversations with.
Those properties that did have that infrastructure have been changed from park forest to low-density residential. There are 2 lots left on this cul-de-sac, this lot and the one that Carol owns. And so from an infill development, which is heavily supported by the comprehensive plan, this is exactly what we need to see to ensure that the cost of maintenance for additional infrastructure is limited. Instead of forcing developers to go to the exterior limits of the city and annex in and develop, we need to see these larger lots divided and additional densities be added, and this is a good example of doing that.
Thank you, and that is helpful in my decision as well. And then a general comment for the developer, Mr. Hayes, is that I sent you some correspondence on the what your engineer is highly recommending that you do to that property. So I urge you very, very wholeheartedly to follow those recommendations, because my concern is to make sure that we don't have the issues that have been recited already. So if I can go back to Ms. Fisher again one more time and ask for a clarification on the building permit process. And there may be some other permits that are involved with this property, such as the erosion control. I presume it's your department that has the jurisdiction or the overall oversight of the inspections that have to take place on this property?
In part. A building permit has been issued for a single-family residence, which also allows for grading and allows for the driveway to be constructed. Yes. As a part of that, then, erosion and sediment control information must also be submitted, reviewed and approved. That portion of it is dealt with through the Public Works Department, but we collaborate back and forth with each other. This property owner will not get a certificate of occupancy unless all items of the building permit and the erosion and sediment control permit are completed.
Thank you. And if I may go to Mr. Ganji, please.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Ganji, if you would elaborate for us, please, on what your department has to do with the inspections, because we want to ensure there's limited amount of erosion and silt gets down onto Forest Hills.
Sure, yeah, that's actually the entire purpose of our stormwater pollution prevention plans, is to prevent the soil from migrating off of the site and, limit any of that pollution from that stormwater anywhere else. Our staff will go out there and make routine inspections of all development going on throughout the city and ensure that those plans are being held to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'll yield.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the questions, because I've gone back and forth on this, because it's like and you've heard it over all the years. It's not in my backyard. There's also the open field syndrome, these types of things, and they can go either way. We talked about some things on Fifth Street where people had houses that were backed up against neighborhood commercial, and the developer came in and built what he could build on those properties. He built large apartments. He could have built larger apartments, whatever. He worked with the neighborhood over there. We got it resolved. But one of the things we have a tendency to tell the people is, you knew what the zoning was when you moved there. So I go, I'm defaulting to our Public Works and our Planning Department, because I can recall when Skyline Drive had no houses at all. There was a guy, I think by the name of Robert Moore, who worked for Remax trying to sell that stuff. He could hardly sell a lot. Pat Hall came along, boom, they were gone, and he changed them all up. He repositioned them all, changed them all up, and they sold like hotcakes. And today I can imagine they're priceless. But one of my concerns was the Park Forest. I mean, obviously, when Mr. Hayes bought Park Forest, that's what it was zoned. It was zoned for one family unit, but then all of a sudden I get from our planning department that's typical, kind of like going from a no use to a use. Am I correct in that, Mr. Mayor? I would ask Vicki and our director of planning.
Yeah.
Is that how I understand that?
I
We
think
don't build houses on Park Forest traditionally throughout the community, right? It's either low density or multifamily or neighborhood or
Park Forest residential development is sparse. It can be done. Primarily, those are areas that do not have city sewer and water.
Okay.
In this area, though, we do now have that community infrastructure, and so we're seeing the transition into low-density residential.
Okay, so it's a transitionary type of parking for zoning. Originally, when I came here, I thought if it was Park Forest and the individual bought the property as Park Forest and he built a house on it and wanted to build another one on it, then I would say, no, that's not the way it really works. This is a transitionary type zoning, so really it should be zoned low residential because of the aspects of it is now. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor? That's what I'm getting? I want to make sure I got this correct, because if Park Forest is a typical zoning that people can expect when you buy a house, and you buy a house next to a Park Forest, you don't expect someone to build 2 houses on it or 3 houses or whatever. But if it's a temporary parking place for that zoning to be rezoned in the future, then that's a whole different story. So this is what my conversation hinges on. If Mr. Hayes knew that he could only build 1 house on this and was rolling the dice to get it rezoned Park Forest into low residential, then I'm going to say no. That's not going to happen, because there's an expectation when people move into a neighborhood that is zoned under a specific category that they should have some reasonable expectation that, you know, there'll be 1 house next to me, not 2. But if this is transitionary of Park Forest, then I could see voting yes and allowing him to do that.
So this isn't black and white. In Park Forest, regardless of how big your property is, you're going to be allowed to have 1 residence. Only. And for him to do what he wants to do, which is what was done on all other parts of this street, was to eventually rezone as city sewer and water became available. Those end cul-de-sac lots are more of a challenge.
Skyline Drive went from 0 houses to, I don't know, there's probably several up there now.
Right.
I mean, I watched it develop over the years from the time period I've been here. So that's what this transitionary, that could be expected. A reasonable expectation for me would be to believe that that would be low residential.
Our comprehensive plan clearly states that there is flexibility in the future land use plan, and that flexibility is contingent upon city infrastructure. If we didn't have city streets, city and sewer and water, we would not be bringing forward a recommendation to approve. But with that infrastructure, it now merits the increase in density, and you've seen us bring these similar applications before you over and over again, including other lots along Forest Hills Drive.
Thank you, and I'll yield to hear from the rest of my colleagues. Thanks.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move approval, and if I can get a second, retain the floor.
Second by Lance Lehman. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And first of all, I guess I want to say that I appreciate the input from the neighbors, and I appreciate the input from Mr. Hayes, and I have been out to the site, and I think what we're talking about is the neighbors here, I think, are upset with what they see going on out there, and they're trying to use this as a method of discouraging him from even building the 1 house that we know that he's legally entitled to do, and which he is in the process of doing, and he's invested heavily in it already. Now, some of the objection has been that, well, if it's rezoned, he has the opportunity to put 5 other lots up there. We know that's not going to happen. There's not going to be 5 other homes up there. I take him at his word that he's only going to do 1, and as he pointed out earlier, and as Mr. Solomon talked about, there's only 67 feet of frontage. He can't have more than 2 homes up there, his and the one and the next parcel. And so I think that Mr. Hayes has done his due diligence. We've heard about erosion control. He's had an expert out there. He's installing wattles. He's doing what they tell him to do for erosion control. I think this is a desirable development, just like our development director, Vicki Fisher, said. I think that he's crossed every T, dotted every I, and he's entitled to go ahead. And the reason that we have, and this, as Ms. Fisher said, this is in essence transitionary. Things change, and we are able to move with the demands of the city, and we're in a position now to have Mr. Hayes' home there and one other home on the lot next to it. There's sufficient infrastructure. Everything is in place for it. I don't see any reason not to give this rezone. But the problem is, I think, is that the neighbors don't like what they're seeing there now, and they can't do anything about it. And so now they're trying to stop him by coming up with this. It's really a red herring. He's not going to put 5 other lots up there. He won't be able to. And so I think Mr. Hayes, as a property owner, is entitled to develop his own home, and I think that he should be granted the rezone. I think it would benefit the neighborhood to have another infill there, and this is a desirable rezone, and I think that we ought to approve it. I yield.
Bill Evans.
I just want to make one comment that kind of reinforces what Mr. Wiefenbach was the point he was trying to make. People do have an expectation when they see park forest. And if it's a way of holding land, I think people should know that's a temporary thing, because I would assume if I bought a lot and it backed up to park forest, it was going to stay park forest. And so perhaps we need to have a way of designating these things as something that's going to be permanent and it's always going to be a park, or if it is just a temporary designation, because I do find that to be just slightly misleading. And I think that's the point we were trying to make, Mr. Wiefenbach. So I just wanted to comment on that before we vote. Thank you.
Okay, the motion for item 64 is for approval. And for the record, we do have one council member abstaining from this. Laura Armstrong will not be voting. And for the rest of you, we'll go to roll call vote, please.
Jones.
No.
Lehman.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Evans. Drew.
Aye.
Nordstrom.
Aye.
Weifenbach.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Stroman. Motion passes 8-1, and Armstrong abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Under community development items, item 65, a request by Toei Design Group for Meadow Valley LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan. 15 through 20 of Block 12, lots 1 through 21 of Block 2, lots 22 through 42 of Block 4, lots 1 through 16 of Block 1, lots 17 through 32 of Block 3 of Apple Valley subdivision, generally described as being located south of Longview Road, east of Anderson Road. And the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. John Roberts makes that motion, and a second by Bill Evans. We'll go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would call on, I would guess, Vicki Fisher to explain a little bit of why we are approving things that aren't in the city.
Okay, good question. We'll go to Vicki Fisher, and also keep in mind that Andy Scull is here in case anyone needs to ask him a question. Vicki Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So by state law, the City of Rapid City, those municipalities that have a certain population have the authority to review all plats within 3 miles of the city limits. This property falls within that distance requirement. As a part of what the city is looking at is to determine whether or not the infrastructure associated with creating these additional lots is being met. The county, in comparison, reviews whether or not the density is appropriate. At their last County Board of Commissioners meeting, they did approve the rezone. Hence, we're bringing forward the recommendation to approve the proposed lot layout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, for the sake of the colleagues, I just wanted to have that explanation. Thank you.
Okay, Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Mr. Scull a few questions?
Yes.
Mr. Scull, if you would, please. Thank you. I support this project very much. Some questions that have come to me is that area out there, Highway 44, where the stoplights are, Jolly Lane, and then getting closer to town, at certain times of the day and evening are incredibly busy and backed up, and the traffic is a problem out there. Adding 400 homes out there eventually is going to do nothing but increase the traffic that could potentially come out onto Highway 44 and go into Rapid City and then come back out. Are there going to be any other releases from this area that people could take and not have to get onto 44 to get into Rapid City?
Mr. Mayor, just for Andrew Skull, Managing Member, Pink Cabin LLC. Good question. The primary access points will be Anderson Road to Highway 44, then also up to Longview, which would take you to Reservoir Road, and then on down to 44 or over to Radar Hill Road. There was a traffic impact study completed that studied that area, specifically the intersection along Anderson and Longview. I did not bring that report with me here this evening, but all of those intersections achieved a grade of an A or a B in terms of after the 8-year build and the plan. So that's very highly regarded in terms of a traffic impact study.
So that in that study, that issue was questioned and answered through your study?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I believe that staff has a copy of that traffic impact study as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, motion on item 65 is for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 66, a request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for Muth Holdings LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 20 of Block 1 and lots 1 through 25 of Block 2 of Catherine Ridge subdivision, generally described as being located north of Catherine Boulevard between Wellington Drive and Tartan Court. The recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Darla Drew with a motion to approve with stipulations, second by Pat Jones. All in favor of that motion on item 66, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 67, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Sean and Kathy Walls for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 3 of Hidden Springs Ranchettes, number 3, generally described as being located at 14831 229th Street. And again, the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Darla Drew with the motion to approve with stipulations. Bill Evans makes the second. All in favor of that motion on item 67, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 68, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Bruce and Sandra Rampelberg for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 and 2 of Rampelberg Estates, generally described as being located at 13959 Neck Yoke Road. Jason Solomon makes a motion to approve of stipulations, and Pat Jones with a second. All in favor of approval of 68, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 69, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Justin Kistler for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed tract 2A and 2B of Valley View Estates, generally described as being located at 23040 Radar Hill Road. Pat Jones makes a motion to approve with stipulations, and was that Darla Drew on the second? Okay. All in favor of that motion for item 69, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 70, a request by Indigo Design LLC for Dakota Heartland, Inc. for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 3 of Block 1, Lot 1 of Block 2, Lot 1 of Block 3, Lot 1 through 3 of Block 4, and Lots 1 through 3 of Block 5 of Homestead subdivision, generally described as being located east of Timmins Boulevard and south of Bernice Street. Two people making the motion. Lance Lehman with a motion to approve of stipulations, Richie Nordstrom with a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now on to public hearing items 71 through 79. We do not have speaker requests for these items. So we'll go straight to consent public hearing items 71 through 73. Council have a motion. Bill Evans, motion to approve 71 through 73. Greg Stroman makes a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and that's the end of consent public hearing items. Now, non-consent public hearing items, beginning with item number 74. Approve Resolution 2021-003, a resolution for vacation of section line for the south half of the north half of the, this is something else. Someone's doing this on purpose just to. For the south half of the north half of the northwest 1/4 of section 21 and the northeast 1/4 of the northeast 1/4 of section 20, T1N R8E. What does that mean? Sorry, I asked. Okay, Rapid City, Pennington County, South Dakota, more generally described as being located northwest of the intersection of Camus Drive and Palmer Drive. Approved by Lehman, second by Roberts. Yeah. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 75, second reading ordinance 6523, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Shane Boyum for a rezoning request from office commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Wesleyan Boulevard and Plaza Boulevard. Moved approved by Jason Solomon? No, Pat Jones, and a second by Darla Drew. All in favor of approval of item 75, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 76, second reading ordinance 6524, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Black Hills Capital LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to medium density residential district. For property generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Valley Drive, and the recommendation here is to approve in conjunction with a plan development designation. And John Roberts makes that motion, and Jason Solomon with a second. All in favor of that motion in item 76, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 77, second reading, ordinance 6525, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Black Hills Capital LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Valley Drive. And again, the recommendation is to approve in conjunction with a plan development designation, and John Roberts says he makes that motion, and a second by Lance Lehman. All in favor of that motion for item 77, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 78, second reading ordinance 6526, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Black Hills Capital LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Valley Drive, and the recommendation is to approve in conjunction with a plan development designation. John Roberts made the motion, and Pat Jones made the second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 79, second reading, ordinance 6527, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Black Hills Capital LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Valley Drive, and the recommendation is to approve in conjunction with the plan development designation. Roberts makes a motion, and Lehman makes a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 80, the bill list. We'll go to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $10,281,100.63.
Motion to approve, Solomon. Second, Jones. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Lehman, second by Roberts. Everyone in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.